What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of Shitbox Chronicles. Today we're going to be working on our 95 Miata. Has the 1.8 liter, nothing too crazy done to it. It's just lowered, has some wheels, and it does have the Cobra style intake. Now, for those of you watching wondering how I installed this, I did make a YouTube video for it. Unfortunately, the files got corrupted when I uploaded them to YouTube. You were only able to see the first 2 minutes, and then it was just completely black. I couldn't save any of the videos, so that's not up. But for those of you that are interested, I'm just going to give a quick rundown of what it is. The stock airbox goes somewhere in this corner. All you got to do is extend your wires for the MAF sensor, and then you just got to create this. I bought the intake itself off of a group buy, so I got it pretty cheap. I think maybe $100, $90. So far, it's been great. I am noticing it's a little white right here, a little worn, so it might be hitting my hood. Yeah, it looks like it is. You can see little scuffs right here, so I'll probably have to adjust the hood clearance, but that's really nice. I do recommend it if you guys want to go that route. Just maybe careful with the hood clearance. Anyway, today we're going to be working on the valve cover. I did notice it's leaking in the back area over here. It's nothing dramatic, very slight leaking. But since this is one of our daily cars, obviously we want to keep it in good condition. This one doesn't have any issues besides this leak, so we're just going to go ahead and replace that today. This entire metal piece is your valve cover. Typically, you're not going to have a breather or this style intake. You're going to have an air filter box here. I just replaced mine with the Cobra style intake. This is a pretty straightforward replacement. It's just a bunch of 10mm bolts. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it looks like 13 bolts total. Here you can see it's leaking a little bit, nothing drastic, but if you're seeing your car's leaking or has an issue, it's better to address it sooner rather than later. You're going to need the valve cover gasket itself. You can see ours is for the 1.8 liter. You need a 10mm socket, a ratchet, and then just some pliers if you have any clamps. Let's get to it. We're going to start with the bolts on the driver's side. We're going to remove the first 5 bolts, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All 10mm bolts. Alright, the first 5 bolts are out. It's good to keep organized, and I throw them in the valve cover. But use some type of tray or something and just put your bolts there just so they're all together and you don't risk dropping any or losing any. I do want to point out this one up here is a shorter bolt. It's shorter than the rest. You can see them there. And that's all it is. We're going to pull out the spark plug wires now, and then we're going to remove the bolts in the middle. As you can see, here's the next set of bolts. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Alright, we removed the bolts from the first 2 rows. We just have 1 more row left, and it looks like it's just gonna be the 4 bolts here. Now that we have all the bolts removed, you're gonna want to remove this vacuum hose back here. You're gonna have a second one over here if you still have the stock air filter box. Just go ahead and undo them. Okay. So we have all that out of the way. The valve cover is loose. I did forget to mention this earlier. There's 2 bolts back here. There's one hidden right here and another one on this side. I believe they're both 12mm bolts. They're securing the ignition coil to the valve cover. I'm gonna go ahead and remove those since I am thinking of painting this valve cover. We're gonna start on the passenger side for the 2 bolts. You can see the bolts right here, and this is in the way, this little connector. So just go ahead, disconnect that, and you should be able to fit a socket on here. You can see I removed the connector here. So now we have plenty of space. Go ahead, loosen this 12mm bolt, and probably just take the rest out by hand or do the whole thing with the socket, whatever is more convenient for you. I found it easier just to loosen it and remove it by hand. It seemed quicker since there's not a whole lot of space for the ratchet. Anyway, first one's out. Let's grab the second one. You can see on this side, I removed the connector to the camshaft sensor. This is just to give us a little bit more clearance since the bolt is right here. Okay, we got all the bolts off. We disconnected the air hoses and we disconnected the ignition coil in the back. The valve cover should be ready just to pull out. There you can see I even did it with one hand. Now you can see all the oil is exposed here. So in my case, it looks like it's gonna start raining out here. It's a good idea just to cover it if you're gonna paint your valve cover so you don't have this exposed too long. But I'm gonna go ahead and cover it. I'm gonna paint this valve cover with some leftover spray paint I have, and we'll be right back. We got the valve cover all painted up and it's pretty much dry. So we have to put the new valve cover gasket on it before we can put this back in the car. It's a good idea to wipe down the valve cover before you put the gasket and also ensure there's no foreign contaminants in there. The gasket only goes on one way, so you can't really mess this part up. Be sure to take your time and make sure it's all secured. All that's left after this is to put everything back the same way we took it off. Of course, painting is optional, but I do recommend it since it's really easy, it doesn't take up much time, but it makes your car look so much better. Well, that pretty much sums up our video for today, you guys. Valve cover gasket replacement on the 1.8 liter Miata. Just some key notes before we take off. Don't forget to plug back in that cam angle sensor you disconnected earlier. Your car's gonna crank and not start if you leave that disconnected.